As a result, only 3 days later, that envoy died suddenly in Taiyuan Prefecture. It was publicly declared a sudden illness. The emperor immediately became highly suspicious, but couldn't find a single flaw. He had no choice but to send a trusted subordinate to take over. This time he sent the Vice Minister of Revenue, who was fortunately an old associate of the dowager. The matter was finally suppressed for the time being. But how could the emperor just let it go? A few days later, rumors spread in the palace that the dowager was having an affair with a eunuch. The rumors were very detailed, even saying I stayed overnight in the dowager's chambers. The dowager trembled with rage, ordering a thorough investigation into the source of the rumors. After much searching, it traced back to Xiao Zhuzi's remnants. They held a grudge after being kicked out of the palace, deliberately spreading rumors to retaliate. The dowager immediately had Ziyu handle it secretly. That same night, those few eunuchs disappeared. No one in the palace dared to gossip anymore. But suspicion had already taken root in the emperor's heart. He began to summon me frequently, each time giving rewards and questioning me, subtly probing for the dowager's movements. I had to play dumb to brush him off. Upon returning, I reported everything to the dowager. The dowager sneered after hearing it. He really wants to undermine this dowager. Xiao Linzi, you must not let this dowager down. In life, I am your highness's person. In death, I am your highness's ghost. This dowager naturally trusts you. But words of trust alone are not enough. You must prove it with actual actions. How shall I prove it? I want you to go to the emperor's side and be the deepest mole this dowager has planted. My heart skipped a beat. She wanted me to be a double agent. This job was too dangerous. But I didn't hesitate at all. This servant obeys. The dowager seemed very satisfied, rewarding me on the spot with a jade pendant, saying it was an item she had carried for many years, telling me specifically to keep it safe. I hid it close to my chest. When practicing at night, the jade pendant would become slightly warm, resonating with the inner breath of the Huayang divine art. The progress of my practice accelerated quite a bit. The night I broke through to the 3rd level, my whole body felt like it was being burned by fire. Crackling sounds coming from within my bones. The pain was so intense I nearly fainted. I bit my lip hard to avoid crying out. At dawn, I found a layer of black grime on my body, with a foul stench, but my whole being felt transformed. Hearing and sight were sharp, and my strength had increased several times over. Even more surprising, I had regained full control of my body. I looked into the water basin again and again, my eyes stinging with emotion. I had finally become a real man, but this also meant the secret would be harder to hide. I had to be even more careful, tightening my waist belt even more, not daring to take large steps when walking. The Empress Dowager seemed to have seen through something. Once, while wiping sweat from me, his hand slipped and suddenly stopped. He stared at my back for a long time, before softly saying, Xiao Linzi, you've grown sturdier. It's thanks to Her Grace's rewards. The food is good. He didn't ask further. But after that, there was more scrutiny in his eyes. Xiao Chui still came to see me often, though she became much more reserved. She would just sit and talk, sometimes helping me mend my clothes. That day, as she was sewing, she suddenly shed tears. Xiao Linzi, are you leaving? Who said that? I heard Sister Zhao Ju say Her Grace is transferring you to the imperial presence. I didn't speak, which served as a silent admission. She suddenly threw herself into my arms. I don't want you to go there. It's too dangerous. Silly girl, I'll be careful. She looked up at me, her eyes red. Then promise me. You must come back alive. All right. She suddenly stood on her tiptoes and gave me a quick kiss, then ran away. I touched the wet mark on my face, my heart filled with a mixture of emotions. 3 days later, the transfer order arrived. I went to serve the emperor. On the surface, it was a promotion, even if it was arranged by the Empress Dowager. The emperor appeared to value me highly. He granted me private quarters and assigned 2 young eunuchs to serve me. I knew in my heart this was surveillance, but I still acted deeply grateful. By day, I served diligently before the emperor, but by night, I secretly sent messages to the Empress Dowager, hidden in the layers of the food boxes from the imperial kitchen. Xiao Kui would take over. Half a month passed like this, before the emperor finally revealed his true intentions. That night, he dismissed everyone, leaving only me. Xiao Linzi, how has I treated you? Your Majesty's kindness to me is as heavy as a mountain. Then let me ask you, has the Empress Dowager made any suspicious moves lately? I sneered inwardly, but my face put on a look of terror. Her Grace chants to Buddha every day. There are no suspicious moves. The emperor stared at me for a long while, then suddenly said, I know you are the Empress Dowager's man. My whole body froze. But then he added, but I do not blame you. Each serves their own master, that is all. Now I am giving you a chance to leave the darkness for the light. Are you willing? This servant is foolish. I only know to be loyal to my master. What, loyal to your master? Then let me ask you, if the Empress Dowager wanted to rebel, Would you follow her to death or follow me to prosperity? My heart pounded wildly, knowing this was a test. I quickly replied, the Empress, Dowager, is utterly loyal to your Majesty. She absolutely has no ulterior motives. The Emperor didn't press me further, waving his hand for me to withdraw. When I walked out of the hall, my back was already soaked. That same night, I sent the news to the Empress Dowager. Her reply consisted of only 3 words, understood. A few days later, urgent reports came from the border. The enemy was invading again. This time, it was on a massive scale. Prince Ming requested reinforcements from the court. The Emperor was indecisive in the court. After the session, he summoned me for discussion. Xiao Linzi, do you think we should send troops? Affairs of the state. This servant dares not speak out of turn. There are no outsiders here. You may speak freely. If Prince Ming is defeated, the border cannot be held. But if we send reinforcements, military power will be even harder to reclaim. This is exactly what I am worried about. If I sent you to the front, would you be willing? I was stunned for a moment. The Emperor stared straight at me. You are my man. And also the Empress Dowager's man. Sending you will put both sides at ease. I understood clearly. He wanted me to be both a hostage and a spy. I knelt to accept the order. As you command. Returning to the Empress Dowager's palace, she had already received the news. She dismissed her attendants, and for the first time, she proactively embraced me. Her body trembled slightly. Xiao Linzi, this journey is far too dangerous. Rest assured, Your Grace. This servant will surely fulfill the mission. Do you know that I cannot bear to let you go? I also cannot bear to leave Your Grace. But this trip must be taken. She stood on her tiptoes to kiss me, kissing so hard, as if she wanted to carve me into her bones. It was a long time before we separated. She took a dagger from under her pillow and pressed it into my hand. This is made of dark iron. Incredibly sharp. Keep it for self-defense. I stowed the dagger away. Then she handed over a pill. This is an antidote for 100 poisons. It can save your life at a critical moment. I accepted them one by one. Finally, she held me, whispering in my ear, come back alive. I will wait for you. I nodded heavily. The day we set out, Xiao Chui cried like a rain-drenched doll, secretly slipping me a safety amulet, saying she had specifically requested it at a temple. Ziyu also came. Her face was still cold as ice, but she handed me a suit of soft armor, claiming that neither sword nor spear could pierce it. I thanked her and put it on. The procession slowly left the city. I looked back once. The palace walls were frighteningly high. The Empress Dowager stood on the city gate tower, wearing a red robe like a blazing fire. I gripped the reins tightly, turned the horse's head, and did not look back. The wind and sand at the border were truly harsh. Prince Ming came out personally to receive me. He looked very heroic, but his eyes bore a slight resemblance to the Empress Dowager's. His gaze, however, carried a sense of measuring me up. It was like a chilling north wind, making me feel uneasy all over. Eunuch Lin has come a long way. It must have been exhausting. His voice was deep, betraying no emotion. Your Highness is too kind. This servant has come by decree. I ask for your Highness's guidance. He grinned, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. He turned and led me into the main tent. The charcoal fire inside was burning brightly, yet it could not dispel the chill of the border. Military affairs were very hectic. By day I followed Prince Ming everywhere. The soldiers were lined up neatly, but every one of them was sallow and thin, their bodies beneath the armor thin as paper. Prince Ming pointed to a section of broken wall, saying it was caused by an enemy night raid last month. The bricks for repairs still hadn't arrived. His tone sounded calm, but I could hear the suppressed rage within. At night, I organized reports to send to the court. I wrote truthfully about the insufficient supplies and weapons I saw, and how the soldiers only had 2 meals of thin porridge a day. By the end, I could barely hold the brush. I knew these reports would likely vanish into the sea. The Emperor probably wished for Prince Ming to lose. Prince Ming was wary of me at first, often making me wait outside during discussions. Later, seeing that my daily reports were entirely truthful, without the slightest exaggeration, his attitude slowly softened. That day, a small enemy unit came to harass us. He actually took the initiative to ask, Eunuch Lin, what are your thoughts? I pointed to a mountain valley on the map. The terrain here is precarious. We could set an ambush and lure the enemy in. His eyes lit up instantly, and he adopted the plan on the spot. We won a small victory in that battle, capturing some horses and supplies. Back at camp, he pulled me in for a drink. The strong liquor went down, burning like a knife in the throat. He suddenly asked, is Imperial Mother doing well in the palace? Her Grace is in good health, though she often misses your Highness. He didn't speak, staring at the flickering candlelight, for a long while. He only then said, I know you are one of my mother's people. My heart skipped a beat. He waved his hand. Don't be nervous. If my mother trusts you, then I trust you. It's just that this place is far more dangerous than the palace. You must be careful everywhere. Thank you for the warning, Your Highness. From then on, he became much closer to me. When discussing matters, he would let me listen by his side. Sometimes late at night, he would discuss defense strategies with me over a map. I found that he was very skilled at deploying troops. He managed the army strictly. Rewards and punishments were clear. But even the cleverest housewife cannot cook without rice. Provisions and fodder were always a major problem. The military funds allocated by the court never arrived in full. Supplies at Yaoliang Pass were always ambushed halfway. I knew in my heart who was behind it. The soldiers' faces turned sallow from hunger. During training, people were always fainting. The army doctor said it was due to starvation. I secretly wrote a letter to the empress dowager in code, and sent it via the carrier pigeon Ziyu left behind. Half a month later, a group of merchants arrived with 30 carts of goods. They said it was bolts of cloth from Jiangnan. Upon inspection, it was discovered that grains were wrapped inside every bolt of cloth. There was also air-dried meat. When Prince Ming found out, he came to see me in the middle of the night. The wind and snow were howling outside the tent. His shoulders were covered in white frost. Eunuch Lin, thank you. It was the Empress Dowager's intention. She used her own private treasury. My mother's well-being in the palace is thanks to your care. I was stunned for a moment. He actually knew everything so clearly. Be careful with everything. He turned, lifted the curtain, and left. The wind and snow rushed into the tent. The cold made me shiver, but my heart was warm. At that moment, I knew he had finally accepted me. The supply issue was temporarily solved, but the situation at the border grew stranger. Scouts reported a strange flag appearing at the enemy's rear. A black background with scripture on it. It didn't look like a totem from the steppe tribes. Prince Ming gathered the generals to discuss it. Everyone said they had never seen it before. I suddenly remembered. The Empress Dowager mentioned the Western region kingdoms, including the Black Flag Kingdom. They were exceptional at making weapons, and had great ambitions. I voiced this suspicion. Prince Ming's brow furrowed tightly. If Western region forces really intervened, this war wouldn't just be a border skirmish. It would likely become a national war. He immediately sent people deep behind enemy lines. They had to find out the origin of the flag. 3 days later, the scouts returned to report it was indeed an envoy from the Black Flag Kingdom. They had already met with the enemy leader 3 times. They sent a large amount of high-quality armor, and several hundred carts of supplies. The atmosphere in the tent suddenly became heavy. An old general slammed the table and stood up. The Western barbarians dared to interfere. Prince Ming, however, remained very calm. They are coming for the Great Shah. If we lose, the Central Plains will be next. He adjusted the defenses overnight, deploying the most elite cavalry to the west. He also wrote an urgent 800-li letter back to the capital. But we all knew that, quote, distant water cannot put out a nearby fire. The war became increasingly tense. The enemy gathered an army of 100,000, yet claimed to have 200,000. Like a dark cloud pressing down, they set up camp 30 li away. Every day, the sound of their drills shook the sky. Prince Ming decided he couldn't just wait. He planned to take the initiative, to launch a night raid on the enemy camp. I insisted on going along. He frowned. Eunuch Lin, the battlefield is no laughing matter. Though I have no great skill, I am willing to share your highness's burdens. He couldn't win the argument with me, so he let me follow him disguised as a personal soldier. That night was dark and windy. The stars were all hidden. We led 5,000 light cavalry. With horses, hooves muffled, we moved silently toward the enemy camp. The howling north wind masked the sounds of our march. The enemy camp's lights were sparse. They likely thought we wouldn't dare to strike. Prince Ming gave a hand signal. An elite squad sneaked into the supply depot. Oil was splashed and fire arrows were fired simultaneously. Flames erupted suddenly. The enemy army was in chaos. Shouts and curses were endless. We took the opportunity to charge and kill, slaughtering countless enemies. Just as we were about to retreat, a troop of heavy cavalry charged out from the side. The armor glinted coldly in the firelight. It was indeed the Western style. Prince Ming led the charge to meet them. Swords and spears clashed. Sparks flew everywhere. Amidst the chaos, a cold arrow was shot, aiming straight for Prince Ming's heart. Without thinking, I lunged forward to shield him. The force of the arrow was so great. It pierced deep into my left shoulder, knocking me off my horse. Prince Ming swung his blade and killed the enemy general who shot the arrow. He leaned down, pulled me up onto his horse, and shouted to retreat. He commanded the troops to break through the encirclement. By the time we returned to camp, I had fainted. I had lost too much blood, and my body was freezing. When I woke up, I was in the tent. The charcoal fire was crackling. The army doctor was preparing to pull out the arrow. He told me to bite on a wooden stick. He gripped the shaft with both hands and pulled it out sharply. Intense pain swept over me like a tide. My whole body convulsed. My vision went black. Prince Ming held my shoulders down. Grit your teeth and hold on! When the arrow came out, it took a piece of flesh with it. Blood surged out. I almost fainted again. But I remembered the Empress Dowager's face, her smiling eyes, and her gentle voice calling, "Little Lindsay." And I held on desperately. The doctor applied medicinal powder and bandaged me up. Prince Ming stayed by my bedside. His eyes were bloodshot. "You saved my life." "I will remember this. The entire army depends on your highness. It's what I should do." He said no more. He personally fed me medicine while recovering. Xiaokui had someone send supplements, a few old ginseng roots, and a box of horseshoe cake. There was also a letter in the Empress Dowager's own handwriting. There were only 2 words on the paper: "Miss you." The handwriting was elegant. The strokes were firm and deep. I pressed the letter to my chest, as if I could feel her warmth. The wound didn't even seem to hurt as much. 7 days later, I could finally walk. But Prince Ming wouldn't let me leave the tent. So I stayed inside, organizing military intelligence. From all the intelligence gathered, the Black Flag Kingdom's involvement was getting deeper. They sent generals to guide the battle formations. The enemy's combat power had significantly increased. More troublesome was that the western region trade routes were suddenly cut off. Passing caravans were all being looted. The voices of the peace faction in the court grew louder. They actually suggested abandoning the border and retreating to protect the Central Plains. Prince Ming was so angry, he smashed his teacup on the spot. How can we hand over the territory of our ancestors to others? He petitioned the court and argued his case. But his reports were like stones sinking into the sea. Once my wound healed slightly, I followed Prince Ming back to the battlefield. At first, he absolutely refused. I said, "I'm really fine now. One more person means one more bit of strength." He finally agreed. During several charges, I stayed closely by his side. The pure yang divine art actually began to circulate on its own in the face of death. My chi surged like a rushing river. That day, the enemy's arrows fell like rain. I swung my blade to parry. The chi in my body suddenly erupted. It actually sent the incoming arrows flying back. Prince Ming watched in astonishment. After the battle, he asked me, "Eunuch Lin, you've practiced martial arts, haven't you?" "I learned some basic moves when I was young." He didn't pry further, but the look in his eyes had gained an indescribable meaning. Scouts brought new information. The Black Flag Kingdom envoy wasn't satisfied. The prince actually personally led 3,000 troops into the enemy camp, claiming they were helping an ally recover lost territory. That so-called lost territory was originally our land. Prince Ming gathered all the generals. "This battle is unavoidable. If I kill the envoy, it's equivalent to declaring war on the Black Flag Kingdom. If I don't, their arrogance will only grow. In this dilemma, I proposed a strategy. Your Highness, we can use a sowing discord tactic." He raised his eyebrows and listened to me. I lowered my voice and said, "Black Chai State and the Grassland tribes are not a monolithic entity at all. They only joined forces for profit. If we turn that profit into suspicion, I suggested sending people to spread rumors, saying that Black Chi's real goal is to annex the grasslands, then forge a few letters, and let the tribal leaders discover them on purpose." Prince Ming's eyes grew brighter and brighter. He immediately arranged for his trusted aides to handle it. 3 days later, the enemy camp, indeed, fell into chaos. The tribal leader and the envoy got into a fight. Someone saw them smashing cups in the tent. 2 more days passed, and part of the enemy army retreated to the grasslands, claiming their homeland was under attack. But Prince Ming said the leader felt uneasy and went back to guard his own nest. The remaining enemy forces were still 80,000, but their morale had hit rock bottom. The Black Chi envoy was left all alone. Prince Ming decided to launch a general offensive. The weather was gloomy that day. The war drums thundered like lightning. Our army marched out in formation. Prince Ming stood at the front in silver armor on a white horse. He raised his sword and shouted, "Protect the country! Today is the day!" The entire army shouted in unison. The sound was so loud it scattered the clouds. The enemy also lined up in opposition. At the front was a general in black robes. It was that envoy from the Black Chi state. In broken Central Plains dialect, he shouted, "Is the lower country out of men? To send a eunuch to supervise the army." Those words were vicious enough, clearly meant to provoke Prince Ming. But Prince Ming burst out laughing. "Even a eunuch is better than you barbarians. You're only fit to bark like dogs." The envoy's face turned blue with rage. He led his troops and charged over. The 2 armies crashed together like a tide. In an instant, flesh and blood flew everywhere. I followed Prince Ming closely into the enemy ranks, pushing the Wanyang divine art to its limit. Every strike of my blade carried the wind. Ordinary soldiers collapsed at the slightest touch. Seeing how fierce we were, the envoy turned his horse and lunged straight for Prince Ming. His curved scimitar moves were bizarre. The blade's light was as curved as the moon. Prince Ming raised his sword to meet him. Blade and sword collided, sparks flying everywhere. After several exchanges, Prince Ming gradually gained the upper hand. A sword strike slashed through his shoulder armor. The envoy retreated hurriedly and blew a horn. Elephant cavalry suddenly rushed out from the enemy lines. A dozen war elephants covered in armor, with sharp blades on their tusks, charged at our army. Elephant cavalry is a secret art of the western regions, rarely seen in the Central Plains. Our horses scattered in fear. The formation was thrown into chaos. Prince Ming urgently ordered the archers to fire. But the elephant hide was too thick. Arrows couldn't penetrate. Seeing this, I jumped off my horse. Using light body skills, I flew toward the lead elephant, channeling Wanyang divine art into both arms. I punched the elephant's leg joint. The war elephant wailed in pain and knelt down. Following that pattern, I injured 3 more elephants. The elephant formation was completely broken. Prince Ming took the chance to lead the cavalry through, separating the elephants from the enemy soldiers. The envoy saw that the situation was lost and tried to escape in the chaos. I picked up a spear from the ground, infused it with qi, and threw it. The spear pierced through his heart like a meteor. He tumbled off his horse. His black robes were soaked in blood. Seeing the envoy dead, the enemy collapsed. They threw away their armor and fled for their lives. Our army pursued them for 30 miles, killed 30,000 enemies, captured many prisoners. A total victory. While clearing the battlefield, a letter was found on the envoy's body. It was written in Western region script. Prince Ming found a translator. When translated, it revealed the Black Qi King's personal decree, ordering the envoy to assassinate Prince Ming. If successful, he would help the tribes annex the border. Then Black Qi would annex the tribes in turn. What a scheme! The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. We kept the letter safe. It's vital evidence. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. A few small skirmishes broke out during this time, but our morale was incredibly high. We won every single battle. The enemy finally couldn't take it and retreated. The grassland tribes sent an envoy with a surrender document, expressing willingness to pay tribute as vassals. Prince Ming agreed to make peace, but insisted they hand over the chieftain who colluded with the West. The envoy was reluctant at first. Prince Ming threw that letter in his face. The envoy's face turned pale with fear. 3 days later, the chieftain was brought over in bonds. Prince Ming beheaded him on the spot. To ensure others wouldn't follow his example, the border was finally at peace for now. Prince Ming held a massive victory feast. Pigs and sheep were slaughtered in the camp. The soldiers finally had a full meal. Laughter and noise didn't stop all night. Prince Ming held up a wine cup to toast me. Eunuch Lin, I owe you a great deal this time. I quickly said I didn't deserve it. He drank the wine in one gulp, leaned into my ear and said, "You saved my life. I will remember it for a lifetime. If you ever need anything, just ask." I bowed and thanked him. The banquet ended. I returned to the tent and packed my luggage, preparing to return to the capital. Prince Ming suddenly walked in and handed me a wooden box. I opened it. Inside was a 1,000-year-old snow ginseng and a military tally. "This is..." I looked up at him. He smiled. "The ginseng is for your health. Give the tally to the empress dowager. This is my private tally. It can mobilize 3,000 heavy cavalry. If something happens in the capital, it can keep you both safe." My heart skipped a beat. "Your Highness." He waved his hand. "Don't say anything. My mother trusts you. And I trust you too." I carefully put the wooden box away. He added, "Departure is in 3 days. I'll send elite guards. Everything on the road is arranged. But the waters in the capital are deep. You must be careful." I nodded. "Take care as well, Your Highness." He patted my shoulder and turned to leave. Moonlight flooded outside like water. The border winds finally stopped. I touched the letter from the Empress Dowager in my robes. Those 2 words, "miss you," were still burning hot. The road back to the capital won't be peaceful. But I know in my heart she is waiting for me. And I will bring the victory from the border and the hidden military tally to return to that man-eating imperial palace, to guard my moon, to continue telling our story. As for Black Qi in the western regions, those hidden dangers will surface sooner or later, but that's for the future. Right now, I just want to see her as soon as possible. 7 days later, the imperial decree arrived, commending Prince Ming and the victorious soldiers, and ordering me back to the capital immediately. Prince Ming saw me off at the pavilion. He dismissed his attendants. "Eunuch Lin, no! I should call you Brother Lin." My heart gave a jolt. He smiled. "This prince has long known your secret. My mother told me in a letter." I was stunned on the spot. The Empress Dowager actually told him? He raised his wine cup. "Thank you for protecting her. I toast you with this." I drank it in one go. He lowered his voice. "The Emperor already suspects you. Be extremely careful after returning. If you need help, this prince can lend a hand." I bowed my head. "Many thanks, Your Highness." On the way back, my heart flew like an arrow. I just wanted to see the Empress Dowager. On the day I reached the capital, she came out in person, in front of all the officials. She only gave a slight nod, but the smile in her eyes couldn't be hidden. That night, I slipped into her palace. He had long ago dismissed his attendants. He suddenly threw himself into my arms and held me tightly. "You've grown thinner and darker," he said, touching my face with heartache. I kissed his hand. "But Your Highness has become even more beautiful." Taking advantage of my sweet talk, he pulled me down to sit. He asked in detail about the affairs at the frontier. I told him everything, piece by piece. When I mentioned getting injured, his eyes turned red. He unbuttoned my clothes, looking at that frightening scar. His fingertips trembled slightly. You are not allowed to take risks again. I nodded quickly, holding his hand tightly. This servant missed your highness. I thought of him every single day. He suddenly burst into a smile through his tears, snuggling into my arms. Sigh. I missed you too. That night, we just fell asleep, holding each other. We didn't do anything. Yet, we were closer than ever. The next day, the emperor summoned me. He gave a huge pile of rewards, promoted me to chief manager of the imperial presence, awarded me 1,000 taels of gold. The red robe was swapped for a purple one, and a silver fish bag hung from my waist. It looked truly magnificent, but I knew it was all superficial. After the court adjourned, he kept me to talk. The incense in the imperial study was very strong, but it couldn't cover that gloom. Xiao Lindsay, the general achieved great merit this time. I must reward you well. I quickly kowtowed to thank him for his grace, kneeling perfectly straight. His tone suddenly shifted. However, the Empress Dowager's side seems a bit restless lately. Have you noticed? My heart skipped a beat, but I put on a look of total confusion. This servant doesn't know. The Empress Dowager stays in the palace every day, just praying and chanting scriptures. The emperor stared at me for a long time. That gaze was like a knife, scraping across my face inch by inch. Only then did he smile and say, forget it, forget it. You've just returned. Go and rest well. I stepped out of the hall. My back was soaked in cold sweat again. When the autumn wind blew, it was bone-chillingly cold. The emperor had indeed grown suspicious. I had to speed things up. I didn't go back to my quarters. I went directly to the Empress Dowager's palace. The Empress Dowager was pruning flower branches. After hearing my report, she put down the golden shears, fingertips gently touching the petals. Since he's suspicious, we can't wait any longer. I discussed with the Empress Dowager, deciding to strike first. But before acting, we had to firmly grasp control over the palace. Lately, using my status as chief manager, I began to secretly set the stage. Starting with the Internal Affairs Bureau, they managed the deployment of workers. I found Deputy Manager Eunuch Chen. He was promoted by the Empress Dowager years ago, but the Emperor had caught him in some bribery. I visited him late at night, bringing jewelry sent back by Prince Ming from the border, and a promise from the Empress Dowager. Past matters would no longer be pursued, and she would treat him well in the future. Eunuch Chen wept bitterly, handing over the roster on the spot. Which palace and which courtyard had the Emperor's spies? It was all clearly marked. Following the roster, I won some over and transferred others. In 3 days, I cleared out 7 people. Next was the Imperial Kitchen, which manages the food for all palaces. The Empress Dowager's safety relied on this. I found a female official in charge. Her nephew was working under Prince Ming. I gave her family letters and reward money. She was incredibly grateful, switching the Empress Dowager's catering to her own trusted staff. Then came the guard office. That was the hardest to infiltrate. The commander of the Imperial Guard was the Emperor's confidant, solid as a rock. I tried a different approach. Starting from the low-level guards, their stipends were pitifully small, and their families often faced hardships. I established a mutual aid office, using the eunuchs' names to support guards in trouble. The money came from the Empress Dowager's private treasury. Their loyalty slowly shifted toward us. In just half a month, I spun a web. Movements from every palace could reach the Empress Dowager's ears promptly. Xiao Kui helped run errands inside. She looked innocent and carefree, but she was actually very observant. When the maids gossiped, she could hear if something was wrong. When concubines visited each other, she saw the patterns. That day, she rushed to find me, her face pale. Xiao Lindsay, someone is investigating you. I was startled. Who? The old eunuch from the records office, surnamed Dong. He manages the internal archives. He pulled your file the day before yesterday, and went to the Imperial Academy of Medicine yesterday to ask about cases of naturally born intersex people. My heart sank. This eunuch Dong was the Emperor's man. When the Empress Dowager found out, she sneered. It seems the Emperor really wants to uncover your roots. She ordered Ziyu to bring eunuch Dong to her palace. Ziyu left to carry out the order. Half an incense stick later, eunuch Dong was brought in. He was over 50, with a withered face, kneeling on the ground and trembling. The Empress Dowager sat above, sipping tea slowly. Eunuch Dong, I heard you've been very busy lately. Dong Katwat, this servant wouldn't dare. She put down the teacup. I have a task here. That requires a meticulous person. Go guard the imperial tombs for 3 years. Set off today. Eunuch Dong snapped his head up, his face turning white instantly. Your Highness, this servant. The Empress Dowager's eyes turned cold. What? Am I unable to command you anymore? Ziyu immediately took a step forward, hand gripping the sword hilt. Eunuch Dong collapsed to the ground and was dragged out. I knew clearly that he would surely never return from this trip. The Empress Dowager turned to me, her voice softening. Don't be afraid. As long as I am here, no one can touch you. My heart felt warm, but I was also a bit worried. Eunuch Dong was eliminated. But once suspicion takes root, there will likely be a second one. Sure enough, 3 days later, the head of the Imperial Medical Academy requested an audience. He said he was under the Emperor's decree to check the pulses of every eunuch in the palace, claiming it was to prevent a plague. The Empress Dowager agreed, but added a condition, since it's a pulse check. Start with my palace first. The head physician didn't dare disobey. He could only set up a table outside the hall. I was third in line. The first 2 junior eunuchs were fine after their check. It was my turn. I extended my wrist. The physician placed 3 fingers on it. He closed his eyes to concentrate, suddenly frowned, and opened his eyes to look at me. A flash of surprise appeared. Manager Lin, this pulse of yours. I said calmly. How is it? He hesitated. Dual yin-yang pulses. Truly strange. As soon as he said this, the surrounding workers all looked over. The Empress Dowager cleared her throat behind the curtain. The physician must have misdiagnosed it. Xiaolinzi was born incomplete. Naturally, his pulse is different from ordinary people. The physician broke into a cold sweat. Yes, I am unskilled. He quickly wrote down the diagnosis. Qi deficiency and weak constitution, needs rest, then withdrew. Afterward, the Empress Dowager called me in. She dismissed everyone, reaching out to touch my cheek. Your body truly cannot be hidden anymore. I lowered my head. This servant is useless. She shook her head. It's not your fault. It's just that this palace can never hide a secret. From today on, you will sleep in my outer chamber at night. In the name of serving me. It was actually to avoid being noticed. I agreed. That same night, I moved my bedding and slept in the outer room of the imperial bedchamber, separated by only a curtain. I could hear his gentle breathing. Though this arrangement was thorough, it invited even more gossip. It was against the rules for the chief steward to sleep in the Empress Dowager's palace. The rumors continued to grow. The Emperor seized the opportunity to make an issue of it. He questioned it during the court session. But the Empress Dowager responded calmly. Since the Emperor doubts me, I shall keep a witness. We shall not be separated day or night. To prove my innocence, the Emperor was rendered speechless. He could only drop the matter. But secretly, he investigated even more strictly. That night, I was practicing the Wanyang divine art at a critical point. My whole body was steaming with heat. Suddenly, there was a sound outside the window. I immediately stopped my practice and crept over. I saw a dark shadow crouching under the windowsill. He was using his pinky finger dipped in saliva to poke a hole in the window paper, trying to peer inside. I held my breath and slammed the window open. The person reacted very quickly, flipping over to run. I jumped out the window and gave chase. Under the moonlight, I saw clearly. It was a young eunuch. He ran very fast, clearly well-trained. Reaching the imperial garden, he suddenly turned around, throwing a handful of lime powder. I was prepared. With a flick of my sleeve, the wind blew the lime back at him. In his moment of gaze, I reached him. I struck a palm to his chest. He fell to the ground, spitting blood. I tore off his mask. It was a strange face. Tell me, who sent you? He gritted his teeth. Suddenly, black blood flowed from his mouth. He had committed suicide by poison. I searched his body, finding only an iron medallion. Engraved on it were the words, Neirui. Those were secret agents directly under the Emperor. I dragged the body to a dark spot and went back to report to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager pondered. That person has made a move. It means the Emperor is losing patience. We must act quickly. Coincidentally, it is the winter solstice in a few days. The Emperor will go to the Temple of Heaven to pray. This is a great opportunity. The Empress Dowager mobilized all her hidden assets. Ziyu was responsible for the assassination. His swordsmanship was exceptional, able to take a life from 100 paces. I was in charge of support, coordinating palace personnel. To ensure a clear escape route, Xiao Kui helped within the palace. She was now in charge of tea and snacks, enabling her to tamper with the food to temporarily weaken some of the guards. Hidden agents elsewhere also received secret orders. They had to create chaos on the day of the winter solstice. Though the plan was thorough, we all knew success or failure rested on this one move. The night before the winter solstice, the Empress Dowager summoned me. She personally straightened my collar, her gaze both tender and firm. Xiaolinzi, after tomorrow, we shall either share wealth together or die together. I held her hand. Jingyu, I will not let you die. She smiled, tears in the corners of her eyes. I believe you. That night, we held each other but did nothing. We just quietly listened to each other's heartbeats. On the day of the winter solstice, heavy snow fell from the sky. Goose feather snowflakes filled the air, leaving the world in a blanket of white. The Emperor's carriage left the palace in a grand procession. Ziyu and I disguised ourselves as guards and blended into the ranks. With his makeup, his face looked ordinary, save for eyes as cold as winter stars. By the time we reached the Temple of Heaven, the snow was half a foot deep. The Emperor stepped down to walk, with officials following behind. Ziyu sought an opportunity to act. He moved closer, his hand resting on his sword hilt. At the very moment he was about to strike, something went wrong. Many ambushing soldiers suddenly emerged from the snow. Swords and spears glinted in the snowlight, surrounding us completely. The Emperor turned around with a loud laugh. As I thought, you came. He had set a trap long ago, waiting for us to walk into it. It turned out the death of the Nerui agent was a deliberate bait. Ziyu protected me, retreating as he fought. The sword light was like a white chain. Every strike brought forth flurries of snow, but there were too many soldiers, surging forward like a tide. We were slowly forced into a dead end. At the most dangerous moment, battle cries thundered outside the Temple of Heaven. Prince Ming arrived with his troops, the black armored cavalry charging through the snow like a black flood. It turned out the Empress Dowager was prepared. She had Prince Ming secretly return to the capital and lie in wait outside the city. The two sides clashed in a chaotic battle. Blood flowed like a river at the Temple of Heaven, staining the white snow into a red carpet. I fought desperately to reach the Emperor. Only a few guards remained by his side. Shaolinzi, I haven't treated you poorly. He gritted his teeth, his eyes wide and bloodshot. I raised my sword, its tip still dripping with blood. Your Majesty, you should not have pressured the Empress Dowager. He suddenly laughed. I am the son of heaven. How could I be wrong? Before he could finish, he lunged with his sword. I sidestepped to dodge and counterattacked. We fought together. The Emperor's martial arts were indeed not weak. His swordsmanship, fast and ruthless. But I had the Huanyang divine art, my internal energy flowing endlessly. Slowly, I gained the upper hand. After 30 moves, I pierced his shoulder with my sword and pinned him to the ground, my sword tip at his throat. Ziyu wanted to kill him. I quickly stopped him. Spare his life. The Empress Dowager still needs him alive. The Emperor let out a bitter laugh. I struck his acupoints and had him bound. We escorted the Emperor back to the palace. The snow was still falling, and the palace road was silent. The Empress Dowager was already waiting in the Golden Hall. She wore her court robes and phoenix crown, sitting regally beside the dragon throne. Seeing the Emperor, her expression was very calm. Your Majesty, you have lost. The Emperor was forced to kneel. He looked up at her, his eyes filled with hate. The winner takes all. Kill me if you wish. The Empress Dowager shook her head. I will not kill you, but you must write an abdication decree, passing the throne to Prince Ming's son. The Emperor roared. Never! The Empress Dowager remained unruffled. She waved her hand for someone to bring in a child. The child was only 3 years old, looking very much like Prince Ming, watching everything in confusion. This is your imperial nephew, the Empress Dowager said softly. If you write the decree, I will spare your life and let you live as a virtuous prince. If you don't. She paused, her gaze suddenly turning cold. You conspired with the western regions to sell our territory. This crime alone is enough for you to die 10 times over. The Emperor's face instantly turned pale. You lie! The Empress Dowager took a letter from her sleeve. It was the secret missive found on the Haichi envoy. A handwritten letter to the king of Haichi, offering to cede 3 border cities in exchange for their support. The Emperor looked as if struck by lightning. How do you have that? The Empress Dowager smiled gently. This palace has never belonged to you alone. The Emperor completely collapsed. He looked at the Empress Dowager, then at the child, and finally looked at me. Shaolinzi, you won. I said nothing. He let out a bitter laugh. Bring paper and pen. The Empress Dowager put away the decree, put him under house arrest in the cold palace. Announced to the public that the Emperor is gravely ill. The Empress Dowager will rule from behind the curtain. The new Emperor will ascend the throne in 3 days. But the new Emperor is only a 3-year-old child. The Empress Dowager held him as they sat on the dragon throne. I stood by the side as the officials paid their respects, shouting, Long live the Emperor! Finally, the dust has settled. That night, the Empress Dowager held a victory banquet. Only Prince Ming and I were invited. Prince Ming raised his glass. Mother, you have finally achieved your wish. The Empress Dowager smiled. It's all thanks to you both. She looked at me. Her gaze was exceptionally tender. Especially Shaolinzi. I toast to you. I quickly raised my glass and drained it in one gulp. Prince Ming looked at me, then back at the Empress Dowager. Suddenly he smiled. Mother, your son has a request. The Empress Dowager asked, What is it? Prince Ming said seriously, Eunuch Lin is loyal and devoted. His contributions are great. I would like to ask Mother to grant him a formal title. The Empress Dowager was stunned. I was also stunned. A formal title? What does that mean? Prince Ming continued. Though eunuch Lin is a eunuch, his talents are extraordinary. Why not adopt him as a sworn brother? Grant him a title of nobility, so he can stay by mother's side permanently. The Empress Dowager's eyes lit up. She looked at me. Are you willing? My heart was pounding. This proposal was too bold. I am willing. I knelt down. Thank you, Prince, for making this possible. The Empress Dowager smiled. She personally helped me up. Good. From this day forward, you are my sworn brother, the Marquis of Zhongyang. I hurriedly kowtowed in gratitude. Prince Ming laughed loudly. A toast to the Marquis! We all drank too much that night. Prince Ming stayed in the palace. I helped the Empress Dowager back to her chambers. She leaned on my shoulder and whispered, Xiao Lindsay, you don't have to pretend anymore. I was taken aback. She smiled. The Yang restoring divine skill. I have known for a long time. You are already a real man. My face turned red. My lady. She covered my mouth. Call me sister. My throat felt dry. Sister, she smiled contentedly. She stood on her tiptoes to kiss me. That night, behind the red curtains, we finally possessed each other without any reservations. She cried in my arms. They were tears of joy. I kissed away her tears, saying over and over, Jingyu, I love you. She replied, I love you too. From now on, we will never be apart again. Later, I truly became the Marquis of Zhongyang. I had a mansion outside the palace, but most of the time, I still lived in the palace. The Empress Dowager ruled from behind the curtain, and I assisted her by her side. Xiao Chui married Ziyu's younger brother, and lived a very happy life. Prince Ming guarded the borders, and the world was at peace. I practiced the Yang restoring divine skill to the 7th level, maintaining eternal youth. Though the Empress Dowager gradually grew white hair, in my eyes, she was always at her most beautiful. We often stood side by side on the city tower, watching the city lights. She leaned on my shoulder and said softly, Xiao Lindsay, the luckiest thing in my life was meeting you. I held her hand tightly. Sister? Let us meet again in the next life. She smiled. Okay. In the next life, I will find you earlier, and never let you suffer again. I kissed her temple, my heart full of fulfillment. This journey was filled with swords and shadows, walking as if on thin ice. But we finally earned our life together. In this deep palace, we have our own home, and we have each other. That is enough. The rest of our lives is still long, and we will keep walking together.